let's go ahead. I don't have a place specifically in your Bible tonight, so you can just kind of set that aside for the moment to kind of give you, we'll kind of give you an update where we're at. First of all, everybody thinks I'm dying just because I decided not to teach last week. I think most people misunderstood what I was saying. I went through a 4-hour procedure. It wasn't test, it's whatever. But bottom line is, all I was saying is I wasn't going to rush through that and then try to get this here. 90% of what I teach in here, I already know. What I don't have done until on Wednesdays is my final PowerPoint. And so what I was saying is I didn't want to go through 4.5 hours of that and then try to get back and get it all lined up. So I was like, the doctor told me to learn a new word, and that was no. So I used it. And so, but I did go to the doctor, and everybody wants to know what's wrong with me. Well, the doctor said, well, first of all, you're fat. Christy got up, high-fived him, and said, finally, somebody can tell him that. So I have to lose about 30, 40 pounds, which I thought, boy, that's going to be a challenge. But either way, that seems to be my biggest issues. If I can solve those, then I'm good to go. I can teach for many more years to come. Now, here's the thing. We're going back into the Holy Grail Bloodlines again tonight, and I'm not going to be able to finish it. I will get to it next week on the banking side of it. Tonight, we're going to talk about some different stuff. Then, obviously, I'm going to the book of Job. However, I keep getting emails, not from you, I hope not from you, but I keep getting emails from people online and different people about the rapture. You guys got to remember, 94% of Christianity does not believe in a rapture. 6% of us do. I've always said this, you can apologize on your way up. It will happen, all right? You cannot rightly divide the word and make the rapture or make the second coming and the calling out of the church. How do you fit all that in there? Okay, but I think I may need to take a Wednesday night or two to explain the rapture and explain why we believe it and take the book of Revelation and prove our point with that. Now, we'll see, but I think I need to do that for at least the people online, and who knows, maybe people in this room, but maybe another thing in the fact of, guys, who knows, you may be wanting to talk to somebody and they don't buy into the rapture. Maybe you can just go, well, here, go check this out, and go from there, because that is a very important doctrine, and we'll get into that in weeks to come. So, as we start every week, 2 Corinthians 4 says, the God of this world hath blinded the eyes. We're talking about Satan, right? All right. Now, here's what's funny, and I'll go to my PowerPoint here, my outline I've been doing for years. And you're going to see tonight that when you start to take all this in, Jesuits, Bilderberg, the Vatican, Freemasonry, Knights of Malta, Trilateral Commission, Ninth Circle, Council of Foreign Relations, and Federal Reserve. Tonight we're going to start to show you how all this stuff, Satan has pulled it together. Now, I take my time every week to go to 2 Corinthians 4:4 and to this map. And the reason being is because I got guys online who are secretly listening, who don't buy into any of this, and that's great. I know you're listening. But at the end of the day, the reason we do this is God clearly lets you know that there is a one world government coming. Okay, that's clear in the scripture. So all these groups talk about New World Order, one world government, one world currency. Now what's funny is Christians, we say, oh yeah, we buy into that. Well, do you know that they're putting that all together? Oh, that's conspiracy theory. Really? You think the rapture happens? Well, wait, 94% of you don't believe that. You just think what? It just pops up at the end? No, all of this system that Satan is running is working towards this very thing that God has already told you and I about. So don't get shocked by conspiracy theories. Some of them are just flat out conspiracy fact. All right? So now we're into this whole thing, and we're talking about what I have titled Holy Grail, or the Bloodline families. And we've taken weeks, or a couple weeks already, to prove that they believe they are descendants from David and from Jesus. And they believe that Jesus' bloodline is in them, and it's what they call the Rex Deus. And the noble families of this world believe they are descendants of Christ. Now, we would all go, yeah, that's garbage. Once again, I'm not trying to teach you what we believe in here. I'm trying to teach you what they believe. And so what the Holy Grail is to them is the Rex Deus bloodline that is being passed down. And so eventually a man's going to come on the scene who's going to say, I have rightful heir to that throne in that third temple that's being built because I'm a descendant. And he's going to be ruling the world, and the whole world's going to go, oh yeah, there we go. All right, now, so the bloodline families that we've been talking about, and we're going to start bringing them out, all right? I won't go through each one of them again. We'll talk about some of them tonight. The Merovingian one is the one you really need to watch because, in my opinion, that's where the king of Jerusalem is going to be coming from, the descendant from Saul, David, and Jesus, in their opinion. And I believe it will come out of the Pacor family, to say the minimal, all right? Now, let's start tonight. If we're ever going to talk about the royal bloodlines and these secret societies, we got to really understand what the secret societies are all about. Because how does a small group of people, 13 families, a committee of 300, and corporations rule over nearly 8 billion people? How do you do that? Well, it's very sophisticated. And it starts with secret societies. And if you don't get these secret societies down, then you can't understand what's really going on around you. Right? And what happens is we think, oh, that stuff ain't happening every day all around you. And they use symbolism. And they're so dogmatic about telling you about it, they put the symbolism out there and we just don't buy into it. Now, I have a theory, and I've told it to you in this room before. When you go into Job, and we will in a few weeks, God allows Satan to attack Job 2 different times. They got a backroom deal going, if you will. Matter of fact, Job is just a pawn in the deal. And Satan's like, God's like, what's up? Not a lot. Trying to look on somebody I can take on. Oh, you consider my man Job? Huh. Job, you got a protection around him. He goes, all right, I'll take the protection away. And each time he would give him certain rules. Couldn't touch his body the first time. Second time, you can't touch his life. So God would allow Satan to do something, but he gave him ground rules. And I just have this theory that as 2 Corinthians 4:4, the God of this world, God's saying, you just got to tell him what you're doing. Because he does it every day, and the average person don't even watch. Satan, Paul comes around and says, listen, we're not ignorant to his devices. He runs the same game plan throughout 6,000 years of history, and the issue is, if I was standing there, I'd go, Paul, I think we are ignorant to his devices because we keep getting laid out by him. All right. So now, secret societies are the key. Right. So I'm going to show you this video of President Kennedy. Okay. This video is the video, or not this video, but this speech is right before he gets killed. And he's letting you and I know that we're up against some secret societies in a monolithic scheme to rule this world. And he was basically saying, I'm going to do my best to shut those things down. And they handled him. Do you know where he died? Dallas, Texas, on the 33rd parallel. That wasn't by mistake. Phoenix, Arizona is on the 33rd parallel. You know what a phoenix is? That's secret society imagery. Right? Do you know if you go to the 33rd parallel and the 33rd longitude, you land on Mount Hermon, where Genesis 6 tells you they came down and landed, right? The angels. None of that stuff is by happenstance. But I'm going to play this President Kennedy video and let you listen to part of it. And it's pretty good. Let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I'm not asking your newspaper...
Now, how up to date would that speech apply in the current situation you're living in? And yet he was telling you, hey, that's what's coming. And that was coming in the 60s, and now we're right in the middle of it all. And yet, shortly after that, the monolithic, ruthless people he was talking about is who took him out. Now, I bring that out because in order to understand secret societies, you got to go back, because this is how the system works. The way Satan's going to work against it is through secrecy, through covert issues. And so what happens is we live in a society that we want to have a voice, and you're being told no. We're asking for truth and you can't find it. Okay? The whole system is working together to silence the people so that the people's voice can't get out, so that their system can run. Now watch this. We would have to start, if we're going to start with secret societies, with the Templars, the Knights Templars. And you've probably seen tons of movies about these guys. These are the guys in the white robes, red sash, and a cross across them. All right? Their horses got red crosses on them. They're the guys heading into Israel for the Crusades for the Catholic Church, and not just the Catholic Church, but the powers to be in Europe. And by the way, there is nothing Christian about a crusade, which is always interesting to me. By the way, you know why most Muslims hate Christians? These very events. All right? So the Knights Templars, these are the first dudes, and they are the military strong arm. And they start out as a group in working. The Templars are called the Knights Templars, members of the Poor Knights of Christ, and the Temple of Solomon, a religious military order of knighthood established at the time of the Crusades that became a model and inspiration for other military orders. Originally founded to protect Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land in order to assume greater military duties during the 12th century. Its prominence and growing wealth, however, provoked opposition from rival orders. Falsely accused of blasphemy, blamed for Crusader failures in the Holy Land, the order was destroyed by King Philip IV of France. Now, check this out. There we go. The Templars eventually acquired great wealth, and kings and great nobles of Spain, France, and England gave lordships, castles, and I don't know why that's lordships again, and estates to the order, so that by the mid-12th century, the Templars owned properties scattered throughout the Western Europe and Mediterranean, the Holy Land. The Templars' military strength was enabled them to safely collect, store, and transport, listen to me, bullion to and from, I'm talking about gold bullion, and I know this sounds like a big deal. Why are we getting a history lesson? Because I'm showing you where the banking system is going. Right? It starts with these guys. So what happens is they just get absolutely jacked with money. And they originally started out as a group of guys vowing a vow of poverty. So they gave a lot of stuff away. Then they started realizing, hey, we got a pretty good gig here. We can make some money. Kings are giving them stuff. And because they're such a military force, they're protecting people for money. And so what happens is they just start, land is given to them, and gold is started to be given to them, and they start transporting this gold. And so therefore the Templars start financing these kings. And these Templars that are financing them basically, become a banking system. Okay, now check this out. Philip IV borrowed enormous sums of money to finance a war with England. A poor king and an even worse military commander, Philip was easily defeated. He saw a way out of both. In other words, I lost the war and I can't pay back the money. What am I going to do? Well, kill your creditor. Take him out. Like, think about it. If you could take out your mortgage company, hey, maybe not kill him, but, get rid of the paperwork or something, and you got a free house. But go ahead and watch this. Now, Philip was easily defeated. He saw a way out of both, currying favor with the Pope, who is now against the Templars, all right, and eliminating this huge debt. On that fateful day, on Friday, October the 13th, where do you think that whole Friday the 13th thing comes from? It wasn't Jason or Freddie or whoever. Was it Jason? All right. So at the end of the day, it's when the Templars are burned at the stake. They're arrested and tortured and so on. He ordered all the Templars arrested and their property seized, and the Grand Master of the order, Jacques de Molay, was thrown into prison along with several other high-ranking order. The trial was a farce. The Templars were charged with heresy, worshiping false idols, and other crimes against the church. Many of them were tortured until they confessed to their crimes, refusing to capitulate. Jacques here would not confess to Philip, ordered him to be burned at the stake. In 2007, the Vatican issued a proclamation declaring the Templars innocent of all their crimes. Gee, I wonder why. All right? Maybe we'll figure out why. So this would lead into the formation of Freemasonry. Many would teach you that once the Knights Templars, not all of them died, but the remaining ones went underground and basically went into Freemasonry and brought it about. Okay? Now Freemasonry, most of you probably know of today. It's not really called Freemasonry within our world. We just call it the Masons. My grandfather, who was a Mason, went to the lodge. My grandmother, who was an Eastern Star, which was same thing in the women's division. This is what's called the third or the Blue Lodge, third degree Masons. Now understand, the guys out here doing Mason work, and not stone work, but the actual lodge, those guys literally don't know anything that's going on. They don't, okay? My grandfather didn't know. I would tell you he's a World War II vet. He wanted to hang out with some dudes. And they thought they were pretty cool because they were in a secret society and they knew some stuff that somebody else didn't. And really, to be honest with you, in a lot of these small towns, if you weren't a part of them, you weren't a mover and a shaker. If you wanted your business to grow, you networked, and this is how many of them done it. But watch this. This is the fraternal organization, was originally located in England, but has since been established in America as well. Albert Pike, okay? So anytime a Mason around here would argue with me, I asked them, what do you know about Albert Pike? Tell me about Albert Pike. If you can't tell me about Albert Pike and his belief systems, and he was a Satanist and admitted to it, if you can't tell me about that, you don't know diddly about what you're a part of. The other is Manly P. Hall, who was the writer, modern day, gives you all the information you're ever going to need about the Masons and writes about it, and they're all Luciferians, and they admit to it. Yet the guys in the lodges, the local lodges, don't take the time to study these guys. Now watch this. Albert Pike, the Grand Commander of Freemasonry and a Satanist, stated in his book, Morals and Dogma, that Freemasonry is a search for light, light being Lucifer. Besides Pike, other noted Freemasons were all Satanists, which were Helen Blavatsky, and by the way, you got to pay attention to that woman, Alice Bailey, Annie Passant, and Manly P. Hall, and now many others who are alive and well and worshiping Satan, knowing or not knowing. Secrecy is so much encouraged in Freemasonry, even the lower level members, i.e. the Blue Lodges, don't know what's really going on. Though the Masons claim they are a Christian organization, in reality, they're the opposite of that. I don't know if you guys remember, but remember when I talked about the actual inauguration of our president? Every one of them happens. So what happens is it's done in the steps of the Capitol, right? So right behind them is a building that's shaped like the pregnant belly of Isis. And as he stands with that pregnant belly behind him, he's staring right at the biggest phallus symbol on the planet, the George Washington Monument, which is a phallus symbol. Pregnant Isis, that picture of basically Tammuz's father is down there. So what happens is, why he is actually being inaugurated, if you go straight down the street to Washington Monument, hang a right, go down to the 33rd degree Mason Center there where Albert Pike is buried. In that building, at the very moment of inauguration, they are in there praying for Apollos to come. Okay? And if you study out Revelation 9, Apollyon and Apollos, and you start to realize, oh, I know what they're asking for. Right? But that's just a little side note. Now, how about the Illuminati? So the Illuminati, and some of these that we're saying, when you say, when did they start? Okay, you have them starting in certain years, but then you have them becoming formal in other years. And so sometimes you're reading something, you're going, wait a minute, that was before they were put together. So the Illuminati is kind of a word that is ambiguous now, but there is an exact group called the Illuminati, and it was started in May of 1776. So when you study how America was formed, you cannot study it without understanding Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis. The very model in which we're put together is based off this guy's book, and it's the New Atlantis. And they're trying to form a system to get back to the golden age of Genesis 6 with Atlantis and Poseidon, okay? So it started in May of 1776. This group is the world's money holders who want to global governance and use chaos to make people submissive, compliant through crime, monetary problems, disobedient children, and the takeover of the education and the economy as well as religion. Now, I just want you to think a second. How do I get people to be compliant? Look around you at what's going on. Fear. Fear that you're going to die. Fear you're going to lose your job. Fear you're going to be ostracized. We now live in a world today that voting ID laws are racist. To show an ID to vote is racist, but to go into a restaurant and have to show ID is nothing wrong with that. Like, let that sink in for a second. I mean, that's where we're at. And so what they do is, in many of these things, they create the problems so they can create the solution. Okay? Now, so they want to overtake the education system, i.e. the Rockefeller Center or system that we teach in this country, and we'll get in more into education in a second. They want to take over the economy as well as religion. David Icke states that the Illuminati, the clique which controls the direction of the world, are genetic hybrids. Now, I disagree with him like where he's going with it, but I do agree with what he explains. The results of interbreeding, and that this is why European royal and aristocrat families have interbred so obsessively, as do the so-called Eastern establishment families of the United States, which produce the leaders of America. Every presidential election since and including George Washington in 1789 has been won by the candidate with the most European genes. The Illuminati are obsessed with symbolism and rituals. And guys, they're huge with the symbolism. That's why I was just telling you about Washington, D.C. and how it's laid out. Remember how we've showed it? It's in the shape of an owl. I mean, we went in and showed this in multiple cities. How that pregnant dome and that phallus symbol, they're huge with symbolism. And they keep interbreeding amongst each other's families. Then we have the Rosicrucians. Right? They started in 1188. Rosicrucianism is a secret society that is said to have been formed in Germany. The society holds a doctrine or theology based on arcane truths of the ancient past, which are kept secret from the common masses. Now see, here's the thing about true Bible believers. Okay? True Bible believers teach that the Bible is available to everyone. That the information that the God and creator of this world has given us, listen, if you have to be in a college library with volumes and volumes and volumes of books to understand a certain passage, I can tell you that passage ain't that important. It's just not. If there is something in the Bible so deep, so intricate, that the common man can't understand it, I can tell you this, it's not that important. Now, there's stuff in the Bible that'll rack your mind. Justin just showed some stuff in the first class about the Torah being laid out in the letter, 49 letters in the first two, and then the last two doing it backwards. And here's what I thought while he was teaching that. And we're taught that some men in old age got together and wrote a book. Like, you ever seen how intricate this book is? It's unbelievable. But God has so designed it that the common man gets it. By the way, if you look at Christianity today, we take men and we take them off into seminary and we teach them the Bible and we send them back out to go into pulpits, and then we explain to them, hey, this book is too deep for you. So what we'll do is, I've got this degree in Greek and Hebrew and all this other stuff. And so if you'll come in here every week and sit down, I'll teach you what you need to know. That is not how God works. The 12 disciples, none of them were that bright. I'm just saying, they're fishermen. They weren't educated men. Now granted, Paul comes along and he's a Sanhedrin, and I get all that. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people that God used to write the Bible were just common everyday people. And God has turned the world upside down with 12 dudes. And literally just guys that were outcast in society. Yet they're like, yeah, we got a secret and you're not allowed to have it. Well, you can keep it. Because the book I have has all the information I have, and God says, yeah, it's for the common man, the common faith. Now, so the symbol of Rosicrucianism, this is why it's called the Rosicrucians. Right? The name of the society Rosicrucianism is derived from the rosy cross or rose cross, or a cross having a rose at the central position, which is also its symbol. The symbol can be found in many or in some rituals beyond the what's called the craft or the Blue Lodge masonry. In other words, you're getting deeper. So if a guy's like, hey man, I'm in the local lodge, yeah, you're not getting the deep stuff. You're in the Sunday school classes of masonry. They're not taking you into their deep theology. Now, the Rosicrucian order is regarded as an inner world order among many of the earlier and modern Rosicrucians, which comprised of great adepts. And remember, I taught you what that word is. Adepts meaning the more you learn in the secret societies, the more levels that you're considered an adept, right? And so the deeper you get, hence a guy like it's a 33rd degree Mason. He's way more in tune with the secrets than the guy at your local lodge. All right? Is compared to that of human beings. The former has the consciousness similar to demigods. Okay? Do you understand? Once you reach a certain level, you're considered a demigod. Why is that a shock when we go back to Genesis chapter 3? Hey man, you eat of that, you'll be like the gods. What was the tree? Knowledge of good and evil. Satan hadn't changed the game plan, yet we keep buying into it. I mean, Justin was just talking about Satan's first recorded words. Yea, hath God said? He got Eve to question the word of God, and he hadn't had to do a whole lot to change his plan. It's still working. The average person out there today, and forget the average person, the men in the pulpits do this junk. Well, you know, that's not what God said. Or that's not what God meant to say. And you're sitting in the pew going, I don't know what God said. Because you've taken my Bible away from me. Right? Now, this College of Invisibles is considered to be a permanent source of responsible for the development of the Rosicrucian movement. And I'll talk about the college, Invisible College, in just a little bit, Lord willing. All right. Now, the Rosicrucians, okay, once again, we're still talking about the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians is completely comprising of occult folklore, esoteric teachings, which is passed on from generation to generation. The secret doctrine has almost never been exposed to the public in print or committed in writing until the present generation. Prior to this, not much of it was been written or printed related to this body of teaching, and were concealed with obscure terms of astrology and alchemy. And let me explain. The reference made in the ancient book of sulfur, mercury, and other chemical elements, and the, watch this, philosopher's stone, were intended to demonstrate the teaching of the secret doctrine to those who knew about it. The philosopher's what? And you thought Harry Potter was just a fun little movie, didn't you? I think Satan's trying to tell you again what he's up to. And these guys, this alchemy stuff, if you study about mercury, it has been said through the Rosicrucians that they had figured out how to take mercury, and if you can hit it with enough electricity, you can turn its elements into gold. Now, I don't know if you can do that or not. It does make me want to make a really tall pole and a bowl full of mercury at the top of it in a rainstorm, hoping lightning hits it. Right? Maybe we can try that one day. All right? Now, so this philosopher's stone, and so what they were doing is this Rosicrucians wouldn't write down all this in-depth stuff. And if you remember, they believe, and according to the book of Enoch and other writings, we have been taught that the angelic host that fell and came to this earth and procreated with women and created the Nephilim, they taught man about all kinds of stuff God had no intentions of teaching. One of them was roots, the teaching of roots. Okay? If you go and study what ayahuasca is, did you know about that down there? Okay, I was just There's places now, not only in Peru, but Costa Rica. Ron White was an alcoholic, the comedian. Goes down to like a J.W. Marriott type resort where they give you ayahuasca to get you off of that stuff. And I don't have time to take you, but it's made of all these roots and different things. It's alchemy. And what they don't know is the people who really are involved in it, it's a doorway to you. It opens you up and allows the spirits to come in. Why do you think alcohol is called spirits? How many dumb things happen under the influence of alcohol? Because what happens is we ingest that and we give ourselves over to it. Same thing with ayahuasca. Now, the doctrine is said to be created gradually by an old occult master and adepts from the scattered fragments of the esoteric teachings taught by the wise men. According to the legend, these fragments of secret doctrines were the scattered portions of the esoteric teaching, the fragments of truth of the ancient Atlantis, and were preserved by the survivors of the Atlantis civilization. Genesis 6. Okay, that's all you got to know. That's where it's coming from. So the stuff we're talking about the angelic host that fell, the fallen angels had taught man, this is where it's being passed down. So in a way, the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians could be called the secret doctrine of Atlantis, which has come through descendants of the people having great occult knowledge. Now you say, what has this got to do with anything? What Atlantis? First of all, I thought that was mysticism. Okay, well, it's not mysticism. Even if you consider it myth and mythology, it goes back to Genesis 6. What was Atlantis about? Poseidon with his 10 sons. And those 10 sons ruled the world. What does the book of Revelation say is coming your way? That there's this whole thing is going to come down to 10 kings. And those 10 kings are going to give it over to one king. All right? It's coming back. Now, black nobility. All right? Black nobility is an extremely powerful group which some Europeans decree to be the core of all societies because they claim to possess the truth. You know, the truth, right? From the tree of knowledge in Eden. Now, once again, we couldn't make this up. And the reason we couldn't make it up is because we have enough sense to go, holy moly, the Bible says all that stuff. Now, what's funny is the average Joe out here might not believe the Bible. Guess who does? These dudes. Right? And what's going on is Satan, who promised, no, you eat that, you'll be like the gods. And they believe Satan's the good guy trying to get us the knowledge, and the God of the Bible is the evil guy trying to keep us from it. Right? And so here's what they're telling you. Oh, all this stuff, we got it from the tree of knowledge. Right? Now, and to be genetically linked to Christ through their bloodline with David and creating the divine covenant, while those who are descendants of Abraham belong to the Abraham covenant, which points up the difference between the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. This organization has been able to remain in power through the maintenance of bloodlines. For instance, Queen Elizabeth II carries the bloodline of the black nobility in Germany back via the black nobility Venetians, through the Phoenicians, through the Egyptians, to the Samaritans, and no doubt Atlantis. Prince Charles can trace 3,000 years of descendants from King Edward III. And once again, you say, I don't buy into that. It doesn't matter whether you do. They do. And this is why they procreate in such a way. They're intermingling their bloodlines because in their opinion, they go back to Genesis 6. And then what they'll say is, you're a commoner. You're not like me. We are from another world. You're just humans. We're descendants of gods. Right? And we are rightful owners to the throne. All right, so then it brings in the round tables. Right? This is associated with the Holy Grail, King Arthur's legend. You know, that's what we talked about in one of the first rounds of this. Of the round table, that is the ritualistic ceremony of the Order of the Garter. Okay, I don't have to take time to take you into the Order of the Garter, but your boy Prince William, Prince Charles, that garb they're wearing when they stand out in their royal deal, that's the Order of the Garter. All right, that is to hail a more modern Illuminati circle of the round tables of this era. Ike says the inner elites of the round tables in the U.S. and the U.K. work together to engineer the circumstances that lead to the global conflict through their technique of, listen, create the problem, then offer the solution. They want to destroy the global status quo, war, and therefore have the opportunity to redraw the world in their agenda's image when the conflict is over. Okay? That's what they do. Create the problem so you can come up with a solution. And what happens is, when you create the problem, you generally make tons of money off the solution. Since COVID started, and I got to be careful with this, since that deal started, we have 9 new billionaires, and they're all in the pharmaceutical world. You do the math. By the way, all those little, who's paying for all that? Because they're free, right? Nothing's free. All right? Somebody's paying all that. Listen, some bankers created a lot of problems in the 90s and early 2000s. In 2008, that thing hit the floor. They came up with a solution. We bought them all out. Strapped that debt to the American taxpayer for years and years to come. Create the problem, make the solution. Make money off the solution. This is what they do. These round tables. So each one of these round tables, now there's a bunch of them, but I'm just going to give you a few. One being the Bilderbergs. You can probably hear about these guys. They have these meetings every year. See if you can roll over to Europe one day and just, hey, I'd like to sit in on this. See if they let you. All right? Now, this powerful group secretly meets every year to discuss plans for every citizen on the earth as to how to foster and implement a one-world government goal. As a clandestine order, each member has vowed not to reveal the nature of the issues covered in the meeting or to give attribution to what was said. Additionally, members of the organization hold major high-profile and influential positions throughout the world. Some of those who have attended and do attend these secret meetings are the likes of Bill Clinton, Walter Mondale, the Rockefellers, Gerald Ford, Tony Blair, Henry Kissinger, Peter Jennings, Colin Powell, and about 115 powerful people. You're not getting in. And they sit around and they decide the direction the world is going. All right? And their whole goal is a one world government. All right? So how about the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR? A powerful and illegal the powerful illegal Federal Reserve Board formed the organization in 1921, right after World War I, to shepherd their plans through to the unsuspecting public, primarily of which is to obliterate national boundaries and form a one world government for which they are loyal to. Boasted the likes of Rockefeller, Richard Nixon, Dean Rusk, and many other past leaders, as well as hundreds of today's media, hot dog politicians, educators, and numerous journalists. Secrecy is paramount, and the CFR is in New York. Hey, the media that we all try to get some info out of, do you understand? Every newspaper, media outlet, and radio, television, all of it is owned by 6 different people. 6 groups own every ounce of information. So what's the chances that you're getting told the truth? Now what's happening is we got some conservatives in here, and I'm a conservative, and you lie to yourself and go, yeah, but I watch Fox News. Fox News? Murdoch owns that thing. You'll find out real quick you're getting lied to. If your TV's on, you're being lied to. I can assure you. All right? Now, number 3 is the Trilateral Commission. believed to be founded in 1973 by Brzezinski with Jimmy Carter and David Rockefeller. This shadow association is thought to exist to create a multinational commerce and banking group through the entrapment of American government and the formation of a one world government. In addition to the founders, other members include Henry Kissinger, Bill Clinton, Bruce Babbitt, Alan Greenspan. How many of you guys remember him? He was the head of the Federal Reserve. You're going to find out the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor is it a reserve. And they decide your money. They decide interest rates. They decide everything. And guess who doesn't get a say in it? Not just you and me. Our government doesn't. They're not government owned. They're a private entity. And when you pull out your dollar bill, you don't have American money. You have Federal Reserve note. That's what you're carrying. And what they do is they lease that dollar bill to the United States for use. And then we have to pay an interest on that. And when we say the United States has to pay an interest on that, that's you and me. Well, 51% of us pay, or is it, no, I'm sorry, 49% of us pay 100% of the taxes in this country. Just a little side note, get you wound up to get ready to go to work again in the morning. All right? So the TLC consists of a global network of plutocrats. Surveillance of everyone's action is a key goal, and to that end, they have developed and still are developing the most high-tech surveillance equipment ever in existence. All right, then we have the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society is something you need to pay attention to. It's founded in 1884. The Fabian Society has been plotting a world government tyranny for 137 years. George Orwell, okay? You guys remember the book 1984? He wrote it in 1939. He's part of the Fabian Society. If you read that book today, it sounds like your daily paper. It's describing what you're living in right now. And he wrote this back in that time. Now, he's not a good man either. He's not like, hey, we're going to forewarn these people so it don't happen. No, he's, once again, Satan's letting you know what he's going to do. Right? Now, so George Orwell writes that, plus they had New Brave World and so forth. It almost seems like predictive programming. Their logo, get this, wolf in sheep's clothing. You can't make this up. Right? And he goes on, right? They were white supremacists, and they are the originators of the Labour Party in Great Britain. Now, they're flaming liberals, and they're white supremacists. You go and study the origin of the Ku Klux Klan. They're white supremacists, but they're flaming progressive liberals. But what happens is, if you point enough to the right side and keep going white supremacist, white supremacist, white supremacist, people buy into that. When the ideology of all white supremacy comes from the left. Now check this out. The guys that they're studying after, and I'll mention him in just a minute, literally wrote in his papers that he believed that the world should be ran by white English-speaking people. And yet, I'm the nut job because I'm a conservative because I don't want to pay a bunch of taxes. Right? Now, let's keep going. Now, National Socialism. This is what they're into. Right? They even started the London School of Economics, which is still around today. So if the London School of Economics was started with the belief system of National Socialism, what do you think they're teaching today? Why do you think every kid comes out of school today thinking socialism? Why they're on their iPhone, drinking a $7 cup of coffee from Starbucks, driving some Jaguar telling me that capitalism's evil. Really? You want to really see socialism? Hop on a plane and go to Cambodia. Go see it somewhere. It's easy to talk about how great socialism is while you live in American plushness that was created by capitalism. But this is what they're into, National Socialism. Now watch this. 1884 is when it's founded. It really starts to take off in the 30s. The 30s, we got another guy spouting off about National Socialism. Anybody want to take a guess on who his name is? Adolf Hitler. You're going to find out all these groups and the bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Henry Ford, you know what they were all doing? Funding Hitler. And we think, oh, well, no, we were on different sides. Create the problem, you create the solution, you make money from it. All right? Now, watch this. Here are their key doctrines. Number one, social justice. Have you heard that lately? That's not a new thing, guys. They keep pounding that. Now watch that. Eugenics. We've talked about eugenics in here. We now don't really call it eugenics. We now call it transhumanism. But they were pumping that. Now, they didn't have the technology back then to call it transhumanism, but they were trying to make a better, remember this? Ubermensch, Uberman, the better man. All right? Their big thing was abortion. Universal health care. It's starting to sound like the Green New Deal. Right? National socialism funded by capitalism. That's what they're trying to do in this country. Give you capitalism with socialism, which never works. Right? Now, watch this. They believed all land should be owned by the state and only rented by the people. I just listened to a lady this week do a speech in a major college about why you shouldn't own anything. Why it's dumb. What we have literally, and you know, Justin was like, "Hey, I don't want to go." What'd you say? Oh, cold-blooded or something. I'm not. He tries to go politically correct. I'm telling you right now, this is the most moronic thing the people have tried to teach. Well, renting, that's an asset. Well, how is renting an asset? Well, because you have freedom, and freedom's an asset. Really. That's great to hear from a 20-year-old. But when you're 65, 70 years old and you're done working, how's that rent thing working for you? You need to accumulate something along the lines to have something to show for over 40 plus years of working. At some point you need to go, yeah, I worked 40 years. Me and my wife, we got us a house and we're hanging out. We've accomplished something. Problem is, the young generation, they not only want everything, they want it right now, and they don't want to work for it. That's impossible. What your parents have, they work their backside off to get. And you're going to have to start over and do it again yourself. But that's a whole nother story. Notice this. They want people to rent. They don't think anybody should own land. They want you to rent it. Well, really, guys, let's be honest. We do that. If this church in 6 months wanted to just really be nice and pay off our house as a retirement program for me, I'm just throwing that out there. Do you understand we would owe right at $400 a month in taxes? Like I'd have a $400 house payment the rest of my life, even if the house was paid off. That's to go to that Rockefeller school system. But that's a whole nother. Their big thing was the ends justify the means. Hey man, if you got to treat somebody like garbage, that's fine as long as the end result is good. And see, we believe the exact opposite of that. Getting something accomplished is great, but if you got to treat people like garbage to do it, that's probably not the right way, guys. I mean, now, Rhodes Society, Cecil Rhodes. You ever heard of a Rhodes Scholarship? Check this out. All right, so around 1870, John Ruskin, and this is the guy who said he believed that white English-speaking people should be ruling the world. John Ruskin, an English professor, taught his apprentices that some people were superior to others. White supremacist, what he was. That one superior man should rule the world. I think I've read that. My Bible tells me that's coming. Oh, and oh, by the way, there is a superior man, and he will rule this world one day for 1,000 years on a throne over there in Jerusalem. And Cecil Rhodes will get to see it. But John Ruskin is teaching this. His lessons were embraced by a powerful man named Cecil Rhodes, who spent all his wealth gained through diamond and golds in South Africa. By the way, the guy who was the white supremacist teaching Cecil Rhodes, who was a white supremacist, goes down to Africa and rips them off of diamonds and gold. The De Beers Company. All right, now, he spent all his wealth gained, so to achieve his lifelong dream of a world government, a new world order. Cecil Rhodes proposed the idea for the British Empire to re-annex the United States of America and reform itself into an imperial federation to establish a superpower and lasting world peace. In 1877, at the age of 23, he wrote his first will, which he expressed his wishes to create a secret society known as the Society of the Elect, all right, that would strive this goal. Because remember, he believes there are certain people who are just more superior. And there's coming a guy who's more superior than everybody. Now, in his last will, Rhodes formed what was known as the Rhodes Scholarship, through which young students from all over the world would receive higher education and indoctrination of one-worldism. So what they were really good at is knowing, now the elites are really good at finding really young, intelligent people and gifted people, scientists, leaders, writers, bringing them in and saying, now, because you are so smart, we're going to give you a Rhodes Scholarship. And we are going to bring you over here to Oxford, and we are going to indoctrinate you into that same system that Cecil Rhodes believed in. And you know who funded this and still funds it today? The Rothschild family. Watch this. I'm about done. Some of the Rhodes Scholars: Bill Clinton, Cory Booker, George Stephanopoulos, Dean Rusk, who was the Secretary of State during the Vietnam War. Gee, isn't that hilarious? All these guys seem to get there, and then you look at a guy like Cory Booker and you go, how in the world can that guy be that dumb? And then you look at his education system and you go, well, he got indoctrinated. He was obviously a smart, intelligent individual to get a Rhodes Scholarship. All right, we will stop right there. We'll pick up on the Jesuits next week and get into the banking system. Guys, we're about to lay it out with the Jesuits, and we'll start talking about that. So, nothing else? Any questions? I know going over these things ain't going to blow your hair back, but it's important to get them to understand how these families control the world. So, nothing else. God bless you. We'll see y'all Sunday.